It's going to be a busy weekend for me, so I'm filming this on Friday afternoon. Let's do some history. Bonjour tout le monde and welcome to Turn Back the Clock with stock number 8. We've got quite a few things. I say that every week. We've got some big major things that happen, and it's always true. So here's what happened this week in French history. On October 11th, 1963, we have 2 deaths. The first is the death of Jean Cocteau. Now, he was an artist, a musician, composer, poet, author, but he was most known for the films that he made. He was a director. Probably his most famous film is the 1946 classic La Belle et la Bête, which is Beauty and the Beast. And he is known also for his Orpheus trilogy, which is a combination of 3 movies based around the story of Orpheus in the underworld. And they are the movies Orpheus, The Blood of a Poet, and The Testament of Orpheus. And in these, he looks at the relationship between the artist and the work that he creates. I've only seen the first one, Orpheus, Orphée. It's out there. It's good, but it's out there. Also, we have the death of Edith Piaf. Now, she was known as the Little Sparrow. There was a movie about Edith Piaf a couple of years ago. It was up for an Academy Award. I didn't see it, I'm sorry to say. Now, she was a short woman, but she had a gigantic voice. And she became the national diva of France and also one of France's first true international stars. Her songs are often considered autobiographical, and they deal with love, loss, sorrow. 3 of her most famous songs are La Vie en Rose. If anyone knows one of her songs, it'll be La Vie en Rose. Non, je regrette rien. I regret nothing. And then finally, Hymne à l'amour, the hymn to love. On October 12th, in 1793, the trial of Marie Antoinette began. This would not last too long, and it would end, of course, with her execution. And it all came from that let them eat cake phrase that she said. Also on October 12th in 1860, the British and French capture Peking, which is the former name of the capital of China. And the Chinese royal palace is burned. Now, this happened during the Second Opium War. And if there was a Second Opium War, there was, of course, a First Opium War. And once again, it's war, so there are a lot of complicated things that went on. Here it is in a nutshell. In the First Opium War, as part of the peace treaty, Britain was given certain trade rights with China. Over the years, Britain wanted to change those rights. China did not want to change them. There was becoming a more anti-Western feel in China. A lot of Westerners were being accosted and attacked. A French missionary was killed, and that's when France got into the picture. And so Britain and France, they decided, we're going to do something about it. And they did. Many of the documents and paintings from this time contain a lot of propaganda, and the Chinese call it the Second Opium War, but the French and the British, they often call it the Franco-British expedition to China. So that gives you kind of an idea of the propaganda or the views of what was going on at the time. October 13th, 1307, the Knights Templar are arrested in France, and their property is confiscated. Now, a lot of the people in France and all throughout Europe at this time, they were jealous of the Knights Templar. They were the elite Christian fighting force. And they had a lot of privileges, and they were also wealthy. The people were jealous of all of this. So King Philip IV, he was in debt to the Knights Templar, and he said, well, the way I can get out of being in debt is getting rid of the Knights Templar and taking all of their wealth. And that's exactly what he did. Now, the Pope tried to stop it, but at that time the Pope didn't have a lot of power politically. And so the Knights Templar in France were arrested, they were executed, many were executed, some were imprisoned for life, and this led to a lot of uprisings against the Knights Templar all throughout Europe. On October 14th, in 1894, Alfred Dreyfus is arrested, and this began what is known as the Dreyfus Affair. Once again, it's complicated. Here it is in a nutshell. Secrets were being leaked to Germany. Dreyfus was from Alsace, which is a part of France which is very close to Germany, and he was also of Jewish heritage. So that was 2 strikes against him. He was used as a scapegoat. He was put on trial. A lot of the charges were trumped up. He was found guilty, convicted, and then sent to prison for, I think, 5 years. New evidence came about that cleared him of any wrongdoing, and it actually pointed to another man. So Dreyfus was put on trial again, but guess what? Again, he was found guilty, but this time his sentence was commuted and he was returned to service in the French army. On October 15th, 1917, Mata Hari is executed at Saint-Lazare. Now, she was a spy for Germany, and she was also a dancer, so she would use her flirtatious ways to get all of this information and then sell it to Germany. On October 16th, 1793, guess what happened? What is this? 4 days after her trial began, Marie Antoinette is executed by guillotine. She was only 37 years old. On October 17th, 1849, Frédéric Chopin dies. Now, his funeral was at a church kind of in central Paris, but just a little bit north of the Louvre Museum, a church called La Madeleine, and 3,000 mourners came to his funeral. He's buried at the Père Lachaise cemetery, but his dying wish was that he would return to his homeland of Poland. And in April of 2014, his body was exhumed and his heart was removed. The body is still in Paris, but his heart was returned to Poland, and that's where it rests now. So, that's French history for this week. I will see you next week. A bientôt.
Yeah!